it's a house fire that's happening in Queens.
Fox 5 Dennis Protzko is live of the scene in Ozone Park with the very latest. Dennis, what are you learning?
Well, Christina, we're being kept at a distance a couple of miles north of the fire scene due to JFK traffic, but we'll bring you down towards ground level. Again, live pictures here from Skyfox HD. Pretty serious fire affecting at least 2 homes here. This is 112th Street here in Queens, Ozone Park, as you mentioned. This is between 107th and 109th Avenues. A 2-alarm fire now. 2-alarm fire upon arrival of the FDNY, breaking out within the last 15 to 20 minutes. You can see very heavy fire now coming up from the front and rear of this 2.5-story apartment, and of course it's now affecting at least 1 additional exposure to either the left or right side. As we bring you back out, you can see 112th Street, obviously a lot of fire activity here with between 107th and 109th Avenues completely closed down with a lot of people, a lot of onlookers out in front of the house. As it stands right now, no reported injuries. Of course, this fire breaking out within the last 15 minutes, but it's going pretty good. Of course, we'll keep an eye on it, bring any additional information as we get it. Again, we're just north of Aqueduct Racetrack. Again, 112th Street between 107th and 109th Avenues here in Queens. And Ernie and Christina, back to you in the studio.
Yeah, Dennis, we're watching the video with you as well. That's quite a roar going there. Tell us more about the area and how it's being affected there, okay?
Well, pretty heavily occupied, obviously. These row houses are pretty close to each other. Again, this call coming in within the last 15 minutes. You can see as we push in really tight, you can see the firefighters on an exposure just to the right side or just on the other side of this first house that's burning. That's the one with the brown roof. You can see heavy flames coming up from the attic area, basically, and basically coming up through the roof as it burns here, and very heavy, thick black smoke coming out from the rear of it. And as we bring the camera out, you can see that fire, or that smoke rather, now basically billowing into the air up to our altitude. We're about 1,500 feet up. So again, you can see this from quite a distance here out of Ozone Park, Queens.
Oh, really a massive fire. A 3-alarm fire at this point. We saw earlier, Dennis, firefighters on the roof. Very dangerous situation. Does it look to be spreading to adjacent buildings at this point?
That's the word we're getting, Christina. At least one other building nearby. They're all basically 2.5-story homes here in this area, and we understand at least 1 exposure. You can see that right in the center portion of your screen there. That's where some of that smoke is coming up from that additional exposure to the right side of the initial house that's burning. You can see that the very heavy flames coming out right now. Obviously, a very tough afternoon for firefighters. Temperature here in the 90s. They're wearing, of course, full turnout gear, and in some cases, oxygen masks up here on top of that second exposure. So again, a very tough afternoon to fight a fire. And again, the good news so far, at least, no reported injuries here to any firefighters, of course, or civilians here on the ground.
All right, Dennis, we thank you for this. This is a pretty bad house fire going on, as we can see on our screen here, Ozone Park in Queens. And how long has this been going on, by the way? I mean, we just broke the story on the air. When did this start?
Yeah, Ernie, just breaking out within the last 20 minutes, FDNY arrived on scene very quickly, and we arrived on scene. We could actually see the smoke from Staten Island, believe it or not. We arrived on scene maybe about 5 minutes after the FDNY did. So, again, they have a couple of tower ladders already set up. They are going through the front door of this initial building that's on fire, and you can see them making additional checks to nearby 2.5-story homes here in the area as well.
You know, Dennis, sorry to interrupt there, but it's just such an alarming scene to look at those firefighters on that roof. It just looks like such a precarious situation with all the heavy smoke, and that roof just doesn't look stable. Do you know what they're trying to do? Are they trying to vent the roof? What does it look like is happening right now?
Right, Christina. Yep, they call them the bravest, and they're getting their money's worth right now. You can see them basically up on this tower ladder, going up on top of that second exposure, surrounded basically by heavy black smoke, flames coming out of the second building. And as you mentioned, yes, they're venting that second roof of that nearby building, trying to stop the flames from spreading any further. But again, this first building here, right here in the foreground, that looks like it's going to be a loss because we have fire shooting from both the front and the rear of this building, and it's going pretty good. You can actually see them there on the second floor. You can see an elbow basically popping out of that window. Just above them, just about 5 feet above that firefighter, you have very, very heavy fire. Again, as you mentioned, now a 3rd alarm here in Queens.
And Dennis, there's quite a bit of fire apparatus out there on the scene. You described that for us. Have they called for any backup that you know?
At this point, again, going to a 3rd alarm, so it's quite a good number of tower ladders, engines. We have the entire block blocked off here. This is, again, 112th Street between 107th and 109th. You can see a number of tower ladders and engines directly in front of this house. We can't see if there's any additional firefighters on nearby streets. We're going to bring the camera over to the left. It looks pretty quiet over there right now, but again, that could change. And of course, if it continues to spread to any other nearby houses, we could have some trouble here in Queens.
Nearby houses and a lot of trees that are also in that area that we can see. We saw some flames that were kind of moving back behind that scene that we have on the screen right now.
Very true, Ernie. And of course, as you look at that flag, you can see the wind basically blowing directly down this street. And you can see it fanning those flames right here on the top of the building. Again, it appears from our vantage point, again, we're a couple of miles north due to JFK traffic, but it looks like the fire is basically being fanned from north to south onto that adjacent building. You can see firefighters right up on top of it, and now fire coming up through that cockloft and that second exposure. So again, at this point, they have their hands full with at least 2 separate houses here.
Yeah, well, obviously we're going to stay with the story. Dennis, stay with us in that situation. We're going to come back to you a little bit later on. This is a house fire, as you can see on your screen. Pretty bad one in Ozone Park.